Hey guys, Alan here, and in this video I had the pleasure of interviewing Will Evans. Will is the founder of FlowCandy. FlowCandy is a customer journey marketing platform. They serve e-commerce brands. I had the chance to talk with Will and get a bunch of insights on email marketing, SMS marketing, and more for Shopify and other e-commerce store owners. So please enjoy the interview. Let us know what you think. Thanks. Bye. Hey guys, thank you for tuning in. I'm Alan from CrewFire, and joining me today is a good friend, Will Evans, the founder and CEO. Is that right?
Co-founder of FlowCandy.
Co-founder of FlowCandy. Yeah. And I'd love for Will, if you want to tell us a little bit about FlowCandy and about the work you guys do.
Right. So I run co-founder of FlowCandy. We specialize in customer journey marketing for e-commerce stores. So that's mostly emails, SMS marketing, upsell, downsell, funnels, stuff like that. And we have about 35 employees all over the world, and I think over like 60 clients now. And yeah, things are going good.
That's awesome. Can you tell us first a bit about what it means to be doing, what was the term that you used? I've never heard it before. It's not just email marketing, not just SMS marketing, but it's customer journey marketing.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's like customer journey, or you'll hear customer segmentation. But yeah, I mean, we're like sort of I've heard like owned media. Some of my team internally uses that word. Basically, when someone lands on your site, all right, from a paid ad or from an organic ad or even just SEO or something, we develop all the tools and deploy all the tactics and strategies to sort of elevate that traffic or prospect into a paid customer and then nurture them, whether that's through email or SMS or upsells and downsells. And most of it's email, because email is still very, very effective. But that's kind of like what we work on day to day.
Got it. And so it's essentially, if I understand this correctly, would it be when a customer takes a certain action, or not even a customer, but a visitor perhaps takes a certain action on a website, with your service, you can reach them with different kinds of marketing to either, present to them more products, upsell them, downsell them, cross-sell them on different products on the e-commerce site?
Yes, we've sort of like taken the traditional agency model, and we've just like productized everything. Oh, you need a pop-up here. You need an email flow here. You need an email campaign here. You might need an SMS blast, or you might need a pop-up here, like an upsell pop-up here. Maybe you need like a upsell post-purchase or something like that. So we've sort of like unbundled that and put that into like products on our site, and we allow our clients to just sort of purchase them ad hoc. If they're like, hey, Will or someone on my team, I just need this like one email blast to go out. Or they're like, hey, you know what? I want to retain you guys monthly and just have you sort of manage it for me.
Nice. And so they can kind of choose a la carte what products or services they want in this customer journey kind of menu.
Yeah.
And that menu can include things like email or SMS messaging, or like on-site triggers and pop-ups.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned pop-ups, like maybe post-purchase pop-ups. You mentioned email and SMS. Can you give us an idea of what other kinds of tools you guys have up your sleeve?
We mostly work with Klaviyo. Okay. So Klaviyo, you can do SMS, email, and pop-ups. We also work a lot with some of the other new, like, upcoming SMS apps, Attentive, SMS Bump. There's one called Voyage we're working a lot with. There's another one called Postscript, Emotive. A lot of the upselling apps we're working with right now, like CartHook, One Click Upsell. I was looking at a new one today. We're starting out this one called Rebuy. I don't know, everything's like changing so fast in e-commerce right now too. Like I feel like there's this huge like sort of unbundling, decentralization trend going on away from like Shopify and stuff like that. So we're kind of like trying to stay on top of that as well. But there's a lot of apps that we're working on we're working with for sure. And there's a lot of apps we're looking at like working with too.
So broadly, what kinds of customers is this service for? And then like if you have any specific examples of the ideal perfect customer.
Yeah, so we work with the best customer for FlowCandy is normally, I would say minimum probably doing over 30K a month in sales. I feel like sometimes we definitely work with people under that, but sometimes when they're under that number, the ROI is not always there with some of our products right away. So I just say that with a caveat. Although some people, they're willing to like wait to break even. Maybe it might take a month or two. While some brands that are bigger, they could break even like day one with some of the stuff that we do. But most of our clients are probably around 100K if I had to average it out, 100K a month. And then we also work with some bigger clients that are, Shopify Plus type stores doing millions a month. I think the biggest one we've ever worked with is probably around 100 million a year.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's awesome. Good for them and good for you. That's epic. So within that spread, you guys offer a menu, you work with a bunch of different clients, 60 different clients, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
What are your most popular services?
Most popular service is probably like the bread and butter that happens with email marketing and Klaviyo, just because that is so, like every store needs that. Like some stores SMS might not work, some stores upsells might not work, but for just about every single store, email marketing still works, and email marketing still has pretty much the highest conversion rate of any other sort of marketing channel across most stores' business. Like if you log into Google Analytics, you'll see Google PPC, Facebook ads, SEO, email marketing. You'll see email marketing. I've seen conversion rates sometimes over 10% in that medium. So our bread and butter, most clients, they're coming to us to do like these standard automations around like abandoned checkout, browse abandonment, welcome flows. Some people call them new subscriber welcome flows, some sort of post-purchase nurturing flows, and also like campaign management in terms of like broadcast newsletters that go out weekly or sometimes daily. And then like some of our clients are more like, some are in fashion, so they might need a little bit different tactics. Some of them are in Nutra or like CBD or something that's like a replenishable. So there's different tactics we deploy there, but that's pretty much our bread and butter. I would say 80% is probably just email marketing.
What's the range in terms of like the pricing of your services? Like, and I guess this kind of could be in two different camps. You have the a la carte, but then you also have the ongoing retainer.
Yeah.
But like, what kind of price point are most of your customers at with you right now?
Yeah, so most get into one of our retention packages because it's a really good deal. Like they can get 3 or 4 flat flows a month for like $1,000 sometimes, versus like some of our flows, if you were to buy them ad hoc, they could cost like $500 or $600 like ad hoc. So it's a really good deal to get into the retention. Most of them we have like so you can start out at like $1,000, and I think our highest one is maybe around 3 or 4K a month. And really the differences there just depend on how much hand-holding and sort of like communication and the style of emails that you want. So the clients that are normally paying us like 4K a month, they normally want like real-time feedback or real-time communication with us in Slack. That's really important to them. They want like more reporting, more dedicated management and access to our copywriters and designers. And a lot of them are on, we call it like the elevated plan. A lot of them also want like some form of elevated custom design and copywriting, where it's like, we're not just doing like cookie cutter templates. We're actually doing something in like Figma or Sketch or Photoshop, and like putting that into HTML and putting it into Klaviyo.
For people that, for example, are spending $1,000 a month, can you give us some examples of what kind of return they're getting on that?
Oh, I mean, we have one guy, it really depends on how much traffic they're getting. That is like a variable that we don't control, but like can have an impact. Cause I know there's one guy that owns like I won't like reveal his store, but he sells like weed in Canada, basically. And he gets a ton of traffic, and he's on like, he's still on like $1,000 a month package with us. And he's making like, he's doing over $100,000 a month from email. Just some of the stuff we set up.
Just from the stuff that you're doing.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Wow.
Yeah. And I will say that, yeah, like a good rule of thumb is like, we can, like whatever revenue you're making, we can, if we're doing like the full management of it, like almost always we can do a 20% bump.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Some stores, it's like the highest I've ever gotten is 67%. 67% of the revenue came from email marketing.
For the 67% customer, what exact flows did you implement?
We did a lot of the same flows, but there was also a lot of heavy campaign management. And there was also like another key variable there was that the traffic that came in was highly relevant and was like highly relevant and highly like attached to that brand. And they also solve like a very like clear pain point that these prospects had. So, and they also had a subscription. That's another thing too, because when you sell subscriptions, when you have a subscription offer, it unlocks a bunch of other flows. But that was sort of kind of like a little bit of background around that, because we did a lot of the same flows that we would normally do. We just did more campaigns. We did these subscription flows, which are like back then, it's changed a little bit, but back then a lot of stores had to have separate checkouts for their subscriptions. So we also had to build like abandoned checkout flow for their subscription checkout. And then there's just a lot of like, when you start getting into subscriptions, there's just a lot of nurturing that goes on to keep someone on a subscription. And then there's a lot of sort of reactivation flows and automations going on to get people that churn back on a subscription order back to like reordering. And I guess you got to know this like in your SaaS background, but it's like, basically we're doing that for e-commerce stores kind of.
So real quick question. I mean, you mentioned like the value package that has 3 flows a month for $1,000 a month, right?
Right.
What does that mean? Like what, if I implement, I guess, let me clarify the question. Part of my thinking is like, okay, if I get like are these flows, are they time bound or are they evergreen? Like I was kind of thinking a flow might be evergreen, like a post-purchase flow or a cross-sell.
They are evergreen. They are evergreen. I think that, so we also have like, we have like a ad hoc thing. You could buy like a bundle where we just set it up in like a month or two. But we found that like a lot of stores, like once they start working with us, they're like, okay, these guys are pretty good. Like, I just want to keep them on retainer, you know, especially after like 2 or 3 months, especially because sometimes that revenue needs to be managed too, you know? And it's like, we need to be doing split testing. We need to be like working on the flow. There's also a lot of campaigns, like 3 to 5 flows. It's 3 to 5 flows or campaigns. So they can like use the campaigns too. And obviously like these stores, they're always going to be sending out campaigns and newsletters, especially around like Black Friday or any holiday or new product launch. So there's a lot of ways to kind of keep adding value once they get into like a subscription or retainer with us. And at $9.95, it's pretty competitive considering like if you really wanted to build your own email marketing department, you're going to need a copywriter, you're going to need a designer, you're probably going to need someone a developer that can implement it all. And then you're going to need someone to manage it all, you know, because if you're a founder, you don't have time to necessarily be managing every single newsletter. So that's what we've kind of found, that eventually like this becomes something that's like, again, generating 20 or 30% of their revenue. And it's like, okay, they have to take it seriously and they need someone that's like professional. It's kind of managing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so you guys are, in a sense, you're like their communications department. Like if they need to communicate a Black Friday deal or on sale, they can ping their seller or FlowCandy account manager.
Yeah.
And get that communicated.
In some way. Yeah. I mean, we have like different setups. I found like the bigger the store is, normally at that point we're working, like if they're a smaller store, yes, we're the ones like that's normally generating the content. And they're just sort of signing off on it. And the bigger stores, like we're either working with somebody in-house with them, or they're even like we're with some clients where they even have their own copywriting department and design department, and they're just using us for strategy and implementation. So it just depends on how big a store you are and what your requirements are.
How long have you guys been doing FlowCandy, or not just FlowCandy, but like working in this kind of space?
I mean, I've been doing it forever. I mean, how long have I known you? Since like 2012, 13, 14? I've been in e-commerce since then, basically, like almost pretty much out of college. I was in it in some capacity. And then I built my own store, and then I got into like the whole Amazon thing, and then sort of like rode my store out, and it kind of like it declined a little bit. And then I got into like doing some consulting for Klaviyo, because at the time Klaviyo had just launched in like 2015. Before that, everyone was just using MailChimp, which is good, but not really meant for e-com. Mm-hmm. And so I got pretty good at this Klaviyo tool, and then I just sort of rode that wave. And then I launched an agency. So I was mostly doing freelancing. Then I launched an agency, Seller Flows, and then Seller Flows eventually morphed into FlowCandy. So I mean, here we are today, 2021.
Yeah. So 7 years or longer in e-commerce from multiple different sides now. I mean, you've been the store, you've been direct to consumer with Chiefs for Men, shout out to the OG.
Yeah.
And then Amazon sales, and then, freelancer consulting services, and now agency services.
Yeah.
And in that time, I'm sure you've seen trends come and go and trends emerge. Totally. Can you talk a bit about like the anything recent that, in the last like year or 2 years that you've seen evolve in the customer journey marketing or the email or SMS marketing?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's huge. I mean, I would say there's so many, and you can just call timeout if I go off too long, but like,
sure.
The biggest one, the new biggest trend is SMS for sure. I'm starting to see some stores now where SMS is actually outperforming email. Where it's like okay, SMS is accounting for like 10 or 15% of the company's sales, and then email is maybe accounting for 10%. So it's not true for everything. And I would say majority, most of the time, I'm still seeing email, but like I'm starting to notice this trend where SMS is really starting to be like a serious powerhouse, like owned media channel for a lot of these brands. That's a big trend. I would say, there's been like I guess the big trend, kind of like I teased it a little bit, is I'm trying to figure out what's going to go on with this sort of like this unbundling of the tech stack, or this sort of like decentralization. I think a lot of people have been pigeonholed a little bit into Shopify. It's created some limitations. So I think there's a lot of new apps that are launching around just like sort of like you hear like people say headless e-commerce. This is like another huge trend. It's like, okay, we're moving off Shopify. We're going to own the checkout. We're going to own the landing pages. And that way, like, something is simple. Like if you're not on Shopify Plus, you can't put like something as simple as like a piece of JavaScript into your checkout, which, heavily limits you. So I think that's a huge new trend, like a very early trend that I'm trying to keep my eye on in terms of like what impact does that have for us and our clients. And I guess like, another big trend that a lot of store owners I know are really freaked out about is this stuff around Facebook iOS 14 update. I've talked to a lot of them, have been like,
it's cookie tracking for anybody that's following along. It's Apple announced that Safari is going to introduce much stricter cookie, much more limiting access for cookies to track user behavior, and that tracking is essential for how Facebook and other ad networks do retargeting ads. And retargeting ads are super, being super important. And other tools too. Like I'm sure that Klaviyo probably has the ability to create cookie-based triggers, right? Maybe.
Yeah, they do it. They're doing it. Yeah, they're tracking open and clicks. They have like a 5-day conversion window. A lot of these apps are doing it, like,
Yeah.
so, I mean,
Huh. And that's
it's
just
very
an
cool.
email. I'm wondering if with Klaviyo, you could even put like a Klaviyo tracking pixel on your Shopify store. And then based on certain, like whether it's abandoned cart or, viewed product page or something, like you might be able to trigger certain flows
Yep.
based on
Yep.
on-site activity.
We do it. There's 2 flows: a browse abandoned flow, active on site flow. So if you've been pixeled as soon as you land, and if you have that email address that's logged in and you're cookied in the same browser, it's like events are lining up. Like if you use the same browser that you use like all the time to go on like on a website, like assuming you're not using like private browsing or something, like we can literally track every single event, which product you viewed, like which collection page you viewed, did you go into the cart, did you go into the checkout, did you purchase, what time, so I mean, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all of that or a lot of that will be evolving as first Safari, later Google will be changing how much access these third-party cookies can access from the
Yeah,
browser.
no, it's that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, how does that? Because I think a lot of when I say consumers, I'm not talking about my clients. I'm talking about like actual like just everyday people that are buying stuff online. I don't think they really know how much
Yeah.
data that they're getting, and they're tracking every single event and what that means. And it's like because I have to explain to people like what FlowCandy is a lot of the time, and that like don't work in e-commerce. I'm like, yeah, like have you ever gotten an email from like this? Or I ask them like, hey, what's a store besides Amazon that you recently bought from? And I'll be like, oh, that's probably a Shopify store. And it's like, hey, did you ever get this email or this text message that was like specifically tailored or relevant to what you were looking at? And I'm like, yeah, that happens to me all the time. I'm like, yeah, that's basically me. We're basically like, we're the ones that are managing that for our clients. And it's and I tell them, like, I unpack like, hey, like, we can see like every product you're viewing, and like how many times you viewed and stuff like that. I think I think some people, younger generation, understand it more, but there's still a lot of people in our generation that I think like just really don't know like the nitty gritty behind it.
Mm-hmm. For people that are doing this themselves, or if you ever onboard clients who are managing it themselves before and then they come to you, what are some of the mistakes that you see people make?
Probably the biggest mistake is they don't really know what they're getting into. And with Klaviyo especially, or really any advanced sort of CRM, there's a lot of like, we use this word logic. It's like, I think of it like the foundation of a house. And they screw up the logic, like they do the wrong triggers or the wrong filters. Then they spend all their time like creating the perfect looking email with the best copy and the design, but they screw up the logic, and it screws up everything. It's kind of like, to use the house analogy, it's like building an amazing house, but not spending any time thinking about the foundation, and then the house just crumbles. And it's the same thing with flows. It's like, if you have really bad logic or logic that's broken, it's going to screw up the entire automation. So I see a lot of mistakes around that. And I just have like a lot of experience troubleshooting that with a lot of clients now, that we've sort of been able to systematize it. But that's probably the number one mistake. People that are coming in, they don't really set the logic up correctly, or they're kind of lazy with the logic, and they don't like test or quality control it, and then it just screws up everything.
What's in store for the future, either for the industry at large, like the field of customer journey marketing, and then for for FlowCandy as a result?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's going to be like this decentralization around. I mean, I'm hopeful, but I do think that there's too much control with certain companies have too much control, whether it's Amazon, that has, like if you launch something on Amazon and then Amazon just comes out with a competitor and just like do Amazon basics and just wipes you out, whether it's like Facebook ads where you have like like 80% of your revenue is coming through like Facebook and Instagram ads, and something as simple as like the pixel shutting down or like your ad account getting banned, that just ruins your entire business. Or it's something like Shopify, kind of like what I said with the checkout, where it's like, I can't do this, or it's like, I got to upgrade to Shopify Plus and pay like $2,000 a month or something, you know? So I think that I'm seeing a lot of trends on Twitter, like early adopters, just like really embracing this sort of decentralization of e-commerce. But I also think there's just this continued rise of e-commerce and just more and more people getting into e-commerce, getting into entrepreneurship, and sort of FlowCandy is going to be there to help you build. Like if you need like ad hoc or like simple automations or simple flows, like FlowCandy will be there to help you deploy them. Whether it's Shopify, Klaviyo, or some other tool that you know, who knows, 5 years from now, there'll probably be some totally new different way to do customer journey marketing, and there'll probably be some totally new different like form of traffic as well.
Where can people find out more about you and the work that you're doing?
They can just go to flowcandy.com, or if they have questions, they can email me, will@flowcandy.com. You can check us out. You know, you can see what we're doing there. And then if you have any questions, shoot me an email.
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, Will, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your insights with us. We really appreciate it. And best of luck in the coming technical future.
I know. I'm excited. Thanks.
All right. Bye.